Hi, everyone. I'm here to get you set up for your third video assignment, which is singing an excerpt from Shulamit Ron's Violin Concerto. So we're on page 24 of your course pack if you want to go ahead and get your score out. Now, before I start talking about what you're going to be doing, we're going to talk a little bit about the construction of the piece. Now, as you can see, I put a clock face down on my bottom right-hand corner, and I am going to just take a second and plot the first couple of measures of this excerpt on the clock face. What you come up with, if you plot all the pitches of the entire excerpt, is this collection right here. Now, hopefully you're here in theory. I know my theory students are, but we are dealing with an octatonic collection. You can tell on the clock face really easily because of the alternation of whole and half steps throughout the collection. So if we want to put a label on this, we have octatonic 2-3. And that will be our collection for the entire excerpt. And the reason that's important is you only have 8 notes you're going to be dealing with here. And you're going to find that some of them are going to adopt certain colors or certain feelings for you as in terms of kind of home base or tonic or centricity. So let's talk about the piece itself. There's a lot going on here. The first thing I'm going to mention is the conducting. You guys had a nice conducting challenge with your first melody, and then you had the Carter last week. We're going to continue the trend, and you've just got a lot of frequently changing conducting patterns. Measure 3, you are dealing with a measure of 5-4. So just as a reminder, your pattern for 5-4, you're going to go down across the body, out, out again, and then up. And you get quite a few measures of 5-4 in here to practice that. Another little conducting challenge is if you look at measure 17, there's this kind of unusual notation above the measure, and it is 3-4 plus 3-8. If you look at the rhythmic values in this measure, they add up to 4.5 beats, which is unusual to say the least. The 3-4 plus 3-8 is a conducting indicator. So you will conduct this as a measure of 3-4, and then you're going to conduct another 3 pattern, but the 8th note will be your beat. So you're conducting 2 consecutive 3 patterns with a different pulse level. Probably makes a lot more sense if I just do it for you. So I'm going to start at measure 15, and I'm going to sing through the next 4 measures or so that you can see the conducting pattern I'm talking about. 3, 4. La, so, la, so, fa, la, so, fa, re, re, si, la, so. So if you were watching measure 17, I conducted 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then back to my regular quarter note pulse for measure 18. As a sidebar, y'all have no idea why there's an extra treble clef there. No clue. Don't know what to tell you, but you can pretty much ignore it. So that's what we have for conducting challenges for this selection. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some rhythmic challenges. There's a little grace note here. That guy's optional. You can do it if you like. You don't have to. These I would like to hear. You can do them on solfege, or you can just sort of neutral syllable them. But I think that those are navigable for you. So I would like to hear those, please. In terms of the rest of the rhythm, you have some quarter note triplets up here. A great way to make sure they are clean, if you had me last semester when we were doing these types of rhythms, we talked about this a lot. Start to imagine 8th note triplets when you're in the beginning of the measure. So if you're thinking eighth note triplets in those first couple of beats, the quarter note triplets will be really, really clean because you already have the pulse stream going in your head. The only other rhythmic challenge, I think, comes in, well, two of them come in the very last line of your excerpt. And that is measure 22. You've got these 16th note triplets that are on the upbeat of 2. And you've also got to navigate some ties there. So let's just speak the solfege in rhythm from right here so that you can get a sense of where those triplets fall. So speaking the solfege in rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, fa, la, fa, si, la, fa, re, do, si, la, fa, do, la, sol, fa, do, fa, do, si, do, la. So you can feel where those triplets sit in that measure. The last rhythmic challenge comes here. We have these double dotted eighth notes attached to a 30-second. If you've not seen them ever or recently, we'll talk about them really quickly. When we subdivide 16th notes, most of us learned it as one ianda. That extra dot on your eighth note just means that we're adding another half of a rhythmic value. So one durational dot adds half of the note value. Eighth note dotted adds a 16th note. A second dot adds half of that value. What that means for you in terms of counting, if you're thinking one ianda for your 16ths, one ianda and the other half of that, so you're going to have to cut the last 16th note in half. That's where that 30-second note will fall. Let's try just tying the rhythm of this 3/4 bar right here. 1, 2, 3. Ta, 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 ta. So if I were to subdivide out loud for you, it would sound like this. 1 and 1 and 1 e and ta ta. So you can sort of feel where that is. Let's do it again. Ready, and ta 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 1 e and ta ta. One last time without me subdividing. Ready, and ta 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 ta. And you have that same rhythmic value at the end of the next measure as well. Luckily, you're not changing pitch there. So it's just a matter of placing the 30-second note correctly. Okay, we've covered conducting. We've covered some rhythm. We've covered the weird treble clef that is stuck in measure 16 for no reason. Now let's talk a little bit more about the pitch content. I told you it's octatonic 2/3. That likely doesn't mean a whole lot for you in terms of learning this to sing it for your assessment. Now, just by taking a look at these 4 lines, and you are only responsible for the passage through the fermata, so just those 4 lines, we open up with this A to G sharp half step. And then we do it again in the next measure. And then we sort of go on a little diversion in measure 3. And then measure 4, we come back to this A to G sharp half step. That little half step is the motive that sort of germinates the entire excerpt. So we start out with that half step and just sort of continually add and expand to it. Now, we get this nice kind of almost a B section here, pick up to 9 through measure 14, where we abandon that A to G sharp half step and sort of expand the range. We float around the entire octatonic collection, playing with different parts of it. So we really introduce the D and the F sharp and F natural as a play off of kind of playing with the D major, D minor triad. And then at 15, we have a bit of a return. So it's almost a bit of like an ABA prime going on. 15, we get a return to that opening motive. And you can, the way it's engraved makes it very, very easy to see that we can kind of almost match up the measures for a little while and see how they're related to the original iteration. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is, believe it or not, this will make it easier to learn the piece. You've got a finite number of motives that are generating the vast majority of the melodic elements that you have here. So the more comfortable you get with those motives, the easier this is going to kind of fall into place. Now, A sort of emerges as the centric pitch for this. And hopefully you've talked about pitch centricity a little bit in theory. A emerges as our centric pitch, and you're going to find that over time it becomes like an anchor for this piece, and you just kind of find it vocally as your toehold as you're working through this. But as we get to the very end, we see this really interesting shift where if you look at these last couple of bars, like right here, I know it's a lot of ledger lines, but I'm just going to play it for you. And now I'm going to reduce it all. One of the really cool aspects of the octatonic collection is that you have a ton of options in terms of triads and seventh chords. The palette is really varied. And this excerpt starts out really exploiting that A to G sharp and playing with the octatonic sound through it. You get lots of passages of alternating half and whole steps. And at the very end, we suddenly shift and we slip into this C sharp major feel. So after all of this octatonic work that you do, you actually end the excerpt arpeggiating a big fat major triad. So you get this really kind of slippery shift where all of a sudden here, this A starts to feel like an upper neighbor to the G sharp, and you shift your centric feel to the C sharp, and you get this nice big major triad that you've been singing since skills 1 to finish up your excerpt. Okay, so what are you doing for a grade? You are going to sing on solfege while conducting these 4 lines. We're looking for nice, clean conducting, clean pitches, nice, strong rhythms, and also dynamics. That's not all. We are also going to give your brains a little bit of clef work. In a separate video, or right after, if you can do it, you are going to speak the solfege just through measure 14. So just the first 2 lines, you are going to conduct and speak the solfege, reading as if you are in tenor clef. So singing 4 lines on solfege while conducting with beautiful dynamics, and then speaking the first 2 lines on solfege while conducting, reading as if the excerpt is in tenor clef. This is due on Thursday, March 4th by 11:59 p.m. And as will be the norm for this first half of the semester, your revision will be due on March 25th. Thank you guys. Good luck. Have fun. It's a beautiful piece, and I really, really hope you enjoy working on it.